Okay, so the month of August has been an interesting month at the Officer Ben household. I have a story for you today about the time that I had a convicted criminal, a man who was out on bond for multiple felony charges, decide to slide by my house and threaten me. Um, I I don't really know the right way to format this video, so I think what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna sit here and tell you the story about what happened in the most honest and clear way that I know how to do it. And I'm going to give you some information about the guy that came to my house and threatened me. This occurred, let's see, at the time of this recording, it's almost 2 weeks ago now. It was on August the 17th, 2024 at 9:21 a.m. I was in my house. My wife and oldest daughter had just left the house to go to a soccer tournament. And this guy in the red SUV in front of my house, who is a convicted criminal, and he's out on multiple felony counts, out on bond right now on multiple felony charges, decided to drive by my house and threaten me. He did it on video, and my neighbor was standing outside of his vehicle and heard him. Who was the criminal that decided to drive by my house and threaten me? Whoops, wrong picture. It was none other than Wolf Bro. Wolf Bro is a guy named Justin Higgins. And I'm going to go through a brief history of Justin Higgins and my relationship with Justin Higgins, just to make sure that everybody knows what's going on here. In November of 2020, I'm pretty sure it was November of 2020, Justin and his wife were having some kind of disagreement. It escalated to the point where Justin's wife ran out of the house, called 911, and made a domestic violence accusation against Justin. The officers responded. They heard what she had to say. They issued an arrest warrant for Justin. They went to the house. He refused to come out, and that turned into a SWAT barricade. Justin was eventually arrested for domestic violence. His wife was issued a protection order. Now, I don't have the page up. I probably should have done that in preparation, but you know what? I'll go ahead and do that now. We'll pause the video. Alrighty, and I am back. Now, Justin, or Wolf Bro, as I like to call him on my channel, this guy right here, he has a Facebook page called Limitless Video Productions. And this Facebook page, if you look at the like count right here, has just under 20,000 likes. Now, when Justin's wife filed for a protection order against him, she told the court, she said, listen, my husband has a Facebook page that has almost 20,000 local followers on it. And I am concerned that he is going to tell his followers to come to the house, harass me, spy on me, all of those other things. So I would like something to be put in the protection order saying that he's not allowed to post on his Facebook about me, make comments about me, or anything like that. The judge actually granted that part, of the protection order. So Justin's wife had a protection order that says he was not allowed to go to her house, be within 500 feet of the house, send anyone in the house, have any communications with her, or make posts on social media about her. I don't have his clerk's page up right now, but over the last 4 years, Justin's now ex-wife has called the police, I don't know, probably close to 100 times, because she was concerned that he was violating the protection order. And somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 times, officers agreed that he was violating the protection order by posting about her on social media, making comments about her on social media, or by posting pictures of her and the children on social media, and also refusing to delete those posts once he had been arrested. So that got to the point where he was actually charged with, and there were some other things that he did, but he was eventually charged with felony violation of protection order, a couple counts of that, stalking, and intimidation of a witness. At some point last year, I think it was towards the end of last year, he actually pled guilty to intimidation of a witness. Now, what does this have to do with me and have to do with him? The thing about Justin is he's one of those people that is a sociopath. He can lie on command, and he refuses to accept responsibility for his actions, blaming everybody but him for what's going on. Now, since I run this YouTube channel and I collect body camera footage from the Columbus Police Department and post those videos online, I've posted multiple videos of him being arrested because he likes to go out and live stream, and often while he's live streaming, he gets arrested by the police. This has led him to come up with this conspiracy saying that I have been filing warrants for his arrest in order to get him arrested so I can then use those videos on YouTube to make myself rich. That's his perspective. We'll go over why that's kind of foolish here in a little bit.
Making false narratives about me, including, unfortunately, the officer that took his private life and used his badge in this conduct, you know. He's writing the warrants so he can get the video and post them up for money. It's sick, dude.
But the fact of the matter is, he continues to say he has never done anything wrong, and that I, Officer Ben, have been setting him up, filing false reports all of this time in order to set him up to get him arrested. And he recently got a warrant for coming to my house and threatening me. And somebody went on his Facebook page and said, "Hey, why don't you turn yourself in? You never learn." His response to that, and that is his response to that in conjunction with his current arrest warrant, or the arrest warrant he had at the time, was to say, "It's funny that you should mention that. The fat pig who generated the false report against Wolf is the very same piglet who was found guilty by the Department of Justice and Department of Inspector General for violating his rights, along with many other crimes." So he's saying that he's calling me the fat piglet that filed a false report against Wolf. And then he goes on to say that I've been found guilty by the Department of Justice for violating his rights. No, that's not true. No. I've never been investigated by the Department of Justice. Never been found guilty of violating anybody's rights. He's full of shit. He's just lying. But what he's doing is he's refusing to take responsibility for his actions and trying to say that I'm filing a false report. Well, here's the problem, Wolf. You came to my house and you threatened me, and it's on video, and I have a witness. There is absolutely no way in hell you can go out and say that I filed a false report in order to get you arrested. You are out on bond on multiple felony charges. There's absolutely no reason that you had to come to my house and threaten me. I did absolutely nothing to cause you to come to my house and threaten me. You did this all of your own volition. You did this because you wanted to. You did this because you wanted to scare me. You wanted to intimidate me. You wanted me to be fearful. That is why you did this. And it is on video with witnesses. So in order to kind of clear the air on all of that and prove to the world that I'm not filing a false report on Wolf, let's go through the video. So like I said, this was on August 17th, 2024 at 9:21 a.m. My wife had just left the house literally 2 minutes prior to this. Justin came by and threatened me. The video picks up when he's in front of my truck in front of my house. I wish that it would have picked up sooner, but at that time, the settings I had on my camera wouldn't have picked up his vehicle. So they didn't pick it up until he was about in front of my house. I have since changed the settings on my camera, so it actually will pick up almost all the way down the street. It should pick up motion. And I'm getting alerts all day and all night long every time somebody comes and goes from their driveway in my neighborhood. I had to make that change because I want to make sure that Justin isn't doing this anymore, or at least that he won't be able to do it once he gets out of jail. So what happened just prior to the video that you're going to see here is he actually pulled up and stopped in the middle of the road. My neighbor is out here putting something in the trunk of his vehicle. You can see, I don't think I can blow this up anymore, but you can see my neighbor is actually looking over at him. I think I have that in the picture. We'll get Justin's face off of the screen here, right here. Yeah, I can blow this up. So you can actually see that my neighbor here is looking over his shoulder at that vehicle. Why is my neighbor looking over his shoulder at that vehicle? Because just prior to that, Justin had stopped a little bit closer to where my neighbor was, looked at my house, and then looked at my neighbor, and he said, "I'm going to kick his fucking ass," pointing at my house. My neighbor looked back. He was like, "What is this guy's problem?" He thought it was strange, obviously, as anybody else would. So he's watching the vehicle as it drives by my house. The next thing that's going to happen is Justin's going to blare his horn to make sure that I knew he was out there, or to make sure that everybody knows he was serious, or maybe just to be as obnoxious and annoying as possible. And that's what you're going to see here. So he drives by the house, blares the horn, continues to drive down the road. Now, I want to direct your attention to my neighbor over here, who is still working in the back of his car, because he was looking out at Justin, and then he turned away to continue doing what he was doing. And then Justin blares his horn, and he's thinking, what just happened there? So then he comes out of the car, he's looking down there, he's like, that was really strange. Like, why would somebody do that to Officer Ben's house? He's thinking about it for a minute. Then he looks over at the camera that's right about here, right on my garage between the vehicles, looks back down the road, then he looks back up the camera again, and you can see Justin's vehicle is still on my street. The reason he is doing all that, because I had just installed this camera about a week prior. So for all I know, Justin's been coming by my house for weeks and threatening me, but I was unaware of it because it didn't have cameras out at the time, and none of my neighbors were outside to witness it or to report it to me. But the Sunday prior to this incident, I had just finally installed this camera. I'd owned it for a little while, but I didn't have proper drill to drill through the masonry on my house. It's a brick front house. I had to drill through the brick. You know how that stuff goes. I had to get a hammer drill. When I installed that camera, my neighbors on both sides were actually at our house. I installed it, looked on my phone immediately. I was like, that is really good footage. That is awesome. So I went over and I showed my neighbors. I'm like, hey guys, I just installed a camera. Look at the footage. Look how crystal clear that is. And look how far you can see. They both commented on how great the footage was. And I told them both, I'm like, yeah, there's this guy that lives in the neighborhood. He's got it out for me, and I'm afraid he's going to come by the house and do something. So I'm going to put this camera up. And they both said, okay, well, we'll keep an eye out. Well, on this particular Saturday when this happened, my neighbor, who is currently looking directly at my camera, he said, you know what? That guy that just came by the house and threatened my neighbor, that's probably the guy that he was talking about when he installed that camera. So he sent me a text. He asked if I was home and if I wanted to come over and talk. So I went over and talked to him, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I was out, you know, we're going to repeat that story. I was out loading some stuff into my car. Some guy drove by and stopped kind of in between our houses, looked at me and said, I'm going to kick that guy's fucking ass, and then drove on. He described him as a white guy with dirty blonde hair, kind of a couple of days of growth on his face, driving this piece of crap red Jeep Cherokee. I immediately knew who he was talking about. I knew he was talking about Wolf Bro. Part of the reason for that is because I drive by Wolf Bro's mother's house on a daily basis, just on my course of business to get out to like a main road out near my house. I literally have to drive by her house probably every day, sometimes multiple times per day. And I've seen this red Jeep outside of the house, and I've seen Justin milling around that red Jeep. Every time I drive by the house, I'm always concerned that he's going to notice me, throw something at my car, something like that. But luckily, he's not usually paying attention, and I've never had a confrontation with him. But I knew there was a high likelihood that that's who it was he was talking about. So I pulled up my camera. I looked and I saw this Jeep. I then called the police, because that's what you're supposed to do when somebody comes to your house and threatens you. The police came out to the house. They gathered a statement for me, told them my neighbor saw the whole thing and that he could identify Justin. They went over and spoke to him. They got a good description of him. They then called some detectives. Detectives came out to the house. They went and spoke to my neighbor, and they presented my neighbor with a photo array. If you're not familiar with what a photo array is, here it is. So the officer calls up and speaks to a detective and says, hey, Ben believes that this was Justin Higgins, Wolf Bro, who came by his house and threatened him. We have a neighbor that says he can ID him. Would you guys be willing to come out and do a photo array? So the detective that was on the phone pulls up Justin Higgins' mugshot. Says, all right, I got a picture of him. I'll go ahead and put together a photo array. He uses other people's mugshots, and this is done through an algorithm and software programming and stuff like that. He just queries the computer to find a bunch of people that look similar to him. They then put them all on a sheet of paper. They print it off. They bring it out to the witness, and the detective that doesn't know which picture is the suspect then presents that to the witness and says, hey, here is a picture. One of these men is the suspect that Officer Ben named to us. Can you tell me if the guy that you saw driving that vehicle making that threat is on that picture? And, you know, this is what it looks like. So you get a bunch of guys that look very similar. And I think this one might even be the same guy, like top, bottom, different ages. I'm not quite sure. I didn't do a lot of research into this particular photo array. I just Googled photo array. But my neighbor went ahead and circled one. Let's say it's number 2 here. He circled him and said, that's the guy. I'm 100% sure that's the guy. So he circles it, writes his initials on it. And the detective says, okay, thank you. You can go inside now. We're done. He walks back over to the officers that are at my house, and the detective that knew who the suspect was shows him which one the witness, my neighbor, selected. And as it turns out, he selected this guy right here, Wolf Bro. So I now have an incident that was captured on video with a witness and a positive identification. Please tell me how you can say that this fat pig who generated a false report, please tell me how that is a false report. It's kind of funny because Wolf Bro is a guy who's been arrested almost 20 times, or at least he's been charged around 20 times over the last 4 years for domestic violence, domestic violence, violation of a protection order, stalking, and intimidation of a witness. He's currently out on bond, or at least at the time he was currently out on bond for those charges. Was awaiting felony trial that he has in October. I believe his trial is October. All he had to do to remain free is not make threats against anybody, not harass anybody, not stalk anybody, not try to intimidate anybody. But he was unable to do that. He had to drive to my house, make an overt act to make sure that he was seen, because he had to go ahead and blare on his horn and all that other stuff, draw attention to himself, threatening me, causing himself to get arrested. He was arrested on August the 23rd, 2024, I believe around 3:30 in the afternoon. He is still locked up. The judge initially gave him a $250 bond, but unfortunately the bond on his felony cases was revoked. So now, in order for him to get out of jail, he's going to have to come up with somewhere in the area of $100,000. So he's going to be spending probably several weeks in jail awaiting his trial on a misdemeanor count of threats of violence, all because he was unable to control himself. Another funny thing that happened on that particular day, let me pull up this picture here. So this probably took a couple hours for the officers to come out, interview me, interview my neighbor, come out and do the photo array. The sergeant on scene asked if I would like to have guard duty on my house while I'm waiting for Justin to be picked up on his warrants. And I said, you know what? I would like to have guard duty on my house. That would make my wife and kids feel a lot safer. So the sergeant called and they had guard duty set up on my house. While they were waiting for officers to come out and take up these guard duty positions that you're looking at right now, the sergeant was actually kind of parked out here in the middle of the road, and the lieutenant was over there. And we were just out there kind of shooting the shit. I had actually walked out to their cars and was leaning in the window of one of their vehicles, just talking to them as we waited for officers to come up and set up guard duty, because the initial officer that came out to file the charges had gone back to the sub to file a warrant for Justin's arrest. Remember, this car wasn't here. It was actually back here. So we were kind of unable to see down this end of the street. My wife was inside and she comes running out of the house. She's like, babe, he's right there. Like, that's him right there, right? Because she looked out the window and she saw this vehicle parked in this driveway right next to this black car. She said that was him. And I backed up. I looked. I was like, that is him. I tell the sergeant and lieutenant, he's literally right there in that driveway. He effectively has a warrant now, even though it hasn't been filed. Can you guys go get him? Justin, who was parked in this driveway watching us, must have observed my wife running out to the car and saying something, observed me pointing at his vehicle. He backed out, took off at a high rate of speed. And by time the guys in these cruisers actually got the vehicles in drive and took off after him, he was he was speeding out of sight, and this crime doesn't fit into the city of Columbus's pursuit policy. So that's something good for you to know, is that you can go to a police officer's house and threaten him and his wife and kids, and it won't fit into the city's pursuit policy. So that's always fun. But regardless of the fact, he took off. So they then had 2 instances of him showing up on one day, which caused me to go and get a protection order while he was out. So I went to the court. I filed for a protection order. I was actually granted an emergency stalking protection order because he showed up multiple times in one day. The judge agreed that was a pattern, and we're going to go ahead and make that a stalking protection order. I had to go to court, I don't know, this past Monday. And while I was at court, waiting, because he had been arrested, it was my belief, and this is how it was described to me, that if he is arrested, they will serve him with his protection order in jail. And then when I go to the hearing, he'll either be there in person or they'll put him on like the TV screen. He'll be able to say some things on whether or not he thinks that this protection order should be granted, and then a judge will make a decision. I showed up at court. I was waiting out at the lobby, waiting for my name to be called, and I saw his mom show up, and she just walked into the doors where the courtroom. I've never been in this kind of situation before, so when I saw her walk out, I walked in as well, and I said, "Hey, are the doors open? Are we allowed to just come in?" And they said, "No. What's your name?" And I gave them my name, and it turns out he was in jail, but they didn't get the paperwork in order, so they didn't have him there, and it was going to have to be continued. And that's why his mom was there. She was there to make sure that the court knew he was locked up, he wasn't going to make it to court, and that it needed to be continued. The funny thing about his mom, and I've got a picture of her. Oh, I didn't bring it up. I've got a picture of her to show you. She has actually been on the channel before. That's Justin's mom. This is Wolf Bro's mom, Beth. You might remember Beth as the drunk woman who came to the door with a firearm and pointed it at a police officer and almost got herself killed. This is Beth Higgins, Justin Higgins' mother. She was at court that day, and as I walked into the room, she looks at me, she gives me this angry scowl. And I said, "Good morning, Beth. How are you?" She goes out the door, and when she's almost completely out of sight, she turns over like a coward, looks over her shoulder, and says, "You're a fucking piece of shit." And then she goes running out. Please, Beth, please explain to me why I am a fucking piece of shit. Because your husband, or your son, excuse me, who was arrested and charged with domestic violence after a SWAT barricade, violated a protection order something close to 20 times over the last 4 years, was found guilty of violating a protection order, guilty of intimidation of a witness, had stalking charges, and now has multiple felony counts of violation of protection order. Please, and then he comes to my house and threatens me. Please explain to me how that makes me a piece of shit. If you would ask me, the person who's a piece of shit is the one that is threatening the victim in this case. It's true. I'm a victim in this case. I was at my house minding my own business, and your son couldn't help himself. He is a sociopath, a liar, and he just couldn't help himself, had to come to my house and threaten me. I didn't do anything wrong in this case. This is not my fault. This is your son's fault. And I would go ahead and go as far to say, this is your fault because you raised him. He is a product of your raising, Beth. You're the piece of shit. Just want to get that out there. Now, we're going to change gears very briefly because I want to go through kind of some of his stuff that he's been saying about me for years and make sure that it's all in the same place, all in the same video. And we're just going to get this all out in the open. So this video I have right here, this is actually body camera footage from him calling the police and wanting to file a fraud report and listing me as the suspect. He makes a lot of allegations against me, saying that I'm filing false warrants for his arrest, yada, 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 saying that I'm doing it for profit. The part that you're going to see right here is him just telling a bold-faced lie that is very easy for me to disprove. Saying that the first video I ever put up of him on my channel got 5 million views and made $50,000. Let's listen to him make that comment right now.
6 videos, yeah.
So that's
his first video.
You know, that
5 million.
That's
views,
already
$50,000.
That sounds like that's already.
All right, so Said the first video that I ever put up of him got 5 million views and made $50,000. Well, here's the thing, Justin. The internet is right here for everyone in the world to see. This is the first video that I ever put up of you. I put it up on February 1st, 2021, but it was an incident that I can't remember when the incident happened. But it was before I'd ever met him, ever dealt with him, ever done anything with him, ever met his wife or anything. I'd never responded to his house. I didn't know anything about the guy other than that he runs this Facebook page called Limitless Video Productions, and he was live streaming on this particular Facebook page when he was arrested. So I went ahead and requested the body camera footage for this video. It takes several months for them to get me the footage, so this probably happened in like October, November. You can see it's chilly, so everyone's wearing coats. I don't know, but it happened in late 2020. I got the video, I posted it. Look at the views, 24,000 views. You guys just heard him right here saying the first video I ever posted to him got 5 million views and made me $50,000.
So that's
His first video had
that
5 million views.
That's already
$50,000.
That's
Yeah. So 5 million views, $50,000. That's what he is saying. This video got 24,000 views, and it certainly did not pay me $50,000. But at the end of the day, and I think I've already rambled on for almost 30 minutes, it's very clear that there's something wrong with Justin. Justin has a problem following the rules. Justin has a problem accepting responsibility for his actions. Justin thinks that everybody else is to blame for the stuff that he is doing. He's been trying to convince the public of that for years. It just so happens that this time he did it on video with independent witnesses that were able to identify him. There's absolutely no way that he's going to get out of this one, and it's absolutely impossible for him to try to blame this on me. I think that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later.